Hi everyone, I'm Imran. I've been an options trader for over 20 years, and to be honest, that kind of became my identity. The truth is I was also a husband, a father, a brother, a friend, many other things, but they all kind of faded into the background. In the last year, I've been through quite a journey. My marriage fell apart, one of my best friends in the whole world died, and I had to look deep inside myself to see who I had become and whether that was who I actually wanted to be. I went down the rabbit hole of identifying my childhood traumas and how they manifested in my personality and the way that I showed up in my relationships. It's all still very much a work in progress. I joke and I call this the healed trader, but at least now I catch myself and I can be more conscious and hopefully be a better dad to my kids. This podcast is my way of documenting my journey that I'm still on. I hope you can relate, and I hope something from my experience can help you along the way. Thanks. Welcome back to The Healed Trader, everyone. So this episode is called Whose Expectations Are You Trying to Meet? So the idea here being, in life, you kind of have this road mapped out for you when in your upbringing, and a lot of the time your parents have certain expectations about what you're going to do, who you're going to be, what you're going to become, and you just kind of buy into that story without really figuring out whether that's what you truly want. And then later on in life, you kind of hit a roadblock where you're like, how did I get here? And am I actually happy? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Like, how have you felt, over your life? Have you always been sort of, or did you fall into that trap maybe earlier in your life of meeting other people's expectations? And did that lead you down maybe paths that weren't right for you? And then how did you go about sort of pivoting and reorientating yourself?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, there was a large part of me that was, again, like just kind of living up to what society expects, what parents expect. I think it's funny, like it's interesting, like now being a parent, because there's so much with kids that you it's kind of like this idea that, like, you need to do what makes me happy. Like, this is what I expect of you, so do it because it makes me happy, and you kind of program that from a young age.
Yeah, you project your own wants and needs onto your kids, right? You can fall into that trap for sure.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes as well, I think as you grow up, I mean, I think the shame, and with what I know now, is that I wish there was more thought and discussion around, what you want to do and why, and what do you want your life to look like.
Well, as in you give your children the respect that they actually, their opinion matters, basically. You mean?
Yeah, but even like when if I think back to school, university and stuff, and you kind of thinking about careers and what you might do, I don't think there was enough discussion around it. It was kind of, you just kind of went through the motions, and I don't think, like, even when I look at like work experience and things like that, like work experience was almost like, go and work in an office and do something like kind of quite mindless, almost like to prove how shit working can be. Like I now, like, I think work experience and things like that should be go and experience lots of different things, and go and spend time like understanding what that day in the life looks like, and does that feel good? Does
that speak to you? Yeah, how does that make you feel? The idea of doing that day in, day out, basically, right? And you have to ignore that you're going to make a certain amount of money doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just like the feeling of getting up in the morning, that's what I'm going to go and spend 8 to 12 hours, however long it is, doing. Yeah. I'm going to do that every single day for many, many years. How does that feel, right?
Yeah.
But I just don't think we are trained to lean into the feeling.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time your feelings don't matter. It's like, forget about your feelings, especially if you're a man.
Yeah.
Like the expectations, like we talk about expectations, the expectations that are put on a man, because you have to be the provider as well, right? So it doesn't matter if you don't want to do that. You have to do that. How else are you going to provide for your family?
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of like, if we were maybe encouraged more to tap into who we actually are on a deeper level, right?
Yeah.
And what actually speaks to our souls and what energizes us and what really fulfills us. And if we're pushed in that down that road, then I think we can find a lot more happiness. And actually, speaking from personal experience, once I finally realized that and I pivoted towards a teaching career where I used the knowledge that I built over 2 decades of trading, for example, and now I was teaching people about it, that just unlocked like a passion and energy inside me that I didn't even know I had. And then what it also did, it forced me to then cultivate other skill sets. So like being on media, for example, right? Being on camera, doing interviews, whether it's me being interviewed or me being the interviewer. These are not things I ever did in a bank. These are not things that I ever thought I could do. But when I started a business and I started just following my sort of heart, as it were, in like doing things that I found really fulfilling, all these other random opportunities kind of presented themselves and I just leaned into it.
Yeah.
And I suddenly, like I designed my own website, for example, on the first run. I've probably done like 3 or 4 different websites for my company. But I remember when I was like building out my website, I was actually really excited about it and like, because it was mine, it was my baby, it was my creation. And that energy that you unlock is really quite a nice thing to experience. And I would certainly encourage people who haven't tried that. And I'm not saying quit your job and like, take a massive risk. I'm just saying do things that you truly enjoy and truly love and try and dedicate a little bit of time every week to doing that. And you'll start to see this energy that you unlock in yourself. And it can be quite life-changing.
The other thing I'd say as well, and this takes a lot of faith, but like trusting intuition. I do believe it's like an internal guidance system, and whether you want to, from a spiritual point of view, think about it as being, like connected to this universal energy, or whether you want to think of it more in a, just your subconscious mind is able to sort of digest things, and put all this information together and kind of almost giving you like the right answer. I think listening to intuition is is sort of huge, because the worst decisions I've made in my life have been the ones when I've sort of used my head over that kind of instinct. And like if anyone asks me for advice now, like particularly like sort of younger people that have worked with me and stuff, and they're like, what do you think? They're like, my heart's telling me this, but I'm like, go with the heart, like every time. And the problem when you do that is it often won't make sense to people around you. Like you could get, say, this job opportunity come up, and it's like it looks amazing. It ticks every box that you could wish. Like the money's great. It's in a great city in the world. It's kind of everything. And if there's a part of you that's like, it doesn't feel right for me, I would say, now you have to separate what's that kind of fear versus the actual feeling of, it's just not right. But I think deep down, that little niggle of this isn't the right thing, and you kind of need to go with that. And then I think if you can lean into that and trust in that kind of intuition, be guided by it, I do think, to your point, I do think things start to flow and unfold in ways that you could never think. And I was always guilty of as well, of trying to kind of map the route, like to how it's all going to be. And it's a lot of pressure, like when you're trying to go, all right, if I take this job, it's going to lead to this, which is going to lead to that, it's going to lead to that. It's a lot of sort of pressure to do that. But B, like there's no way in a million years, like I could never have predicted that I'd be where I am now.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's not
also
even worth trying to predict it when you're just going to be you're going to get it wrong, right?
Yeah. So therefore, I kind of think, do you know what? Stop trying to work out and again living up to people's expectations on just keep kind of feeding your way through life with.
What was that quote you said to me earlier?
Most people are doing jobs they hate to buy things they don't need to please people they don't even like. Yeah. But that is so true, right? We get caught in that sort of rat race and trying to impress people that if you really sat and thought about it, you're like, do I really care? They don't really care. No one really cares. And
so back to the intuition point though, right? So I get it if you're a 45-year-old who's had a lot of life experience and you've kind of learnt from the mistake of not trusting your intuition, right? But as a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, how do you learn that? How do you feel confident enough? How do you trust yourself? How do you back yourself that your intuition is what's going to guide you down that right path?
Yeah, I mean, and maybe it takes experience, and that's why hopefully, like, if anyone's watching this now, maybe they'll sort of take that away. I just think I think when you don't, like, life becomes harder, like, and you'll start to realise that, and you'll make enough decisions where you ignore the intuition, and you go, God, I was like right to sort of do that. And the thing is as well in my life and through my experience, it's never been wrong. Like and the other thing I think about it is when I followed my intuition, even situations that I'm like, oh, wasn't how I was expecting things to turn out. This doesn't look great. It's normally like then led to something like really good. That then with hindsight, I've been able to look back and go, oh yeah, I can see how it all connected. So it's like the connecting the dots.
There's a Chinese fable about that, right? Where it's oh God, I forget the details, but it's like when something good or bad happens to the guy.
Not bad,
it's not good.
Yeah.
You know, it just is, right? You don't pass judgment on something happening in the moment and saying what it means, whether it's good or bad, because it might look at the surface that it's bad, but it might be good for another reason that you can't see coming.
That you can't see, and
yeah, exactly.
And that, I guess there's a faith element to that. Like for me personally, it brings me comfort to feel like I've made a decision based on something like bigger than myself, or from maybe a higher energy than myself.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like, do you think religion, like, is something that or faith, some type of faith can be, I was saying how do you back yourself? How do you trust yourself to, that you're making the right decisions, and whatever everyone else is saying, you kind of ignore it and just do what your heart tells you to do.
Yeah.
If you do subscribe to a higher power and you think like that higher power is looking over you basically, then does that give you that confidence to just be like, you know what, I'll be okay for that reason because I have that faith,
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely does. And I think I've always said to you, I'm sort of spiritual, not religious. So I just believe more in like a universal energy that we kind of connected to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as well, I think you have to believe that life's conspiring for you, not against you.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you've got this mindset that life's conspiring against you, then every situation just feels like hopelessness.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can like live in that kind of like positive expectation that the world is conspiring for you, even in moments of challenge or that this isn't what you were expecting.
Mm-hmm.
If you can hold on to that belief, then you can kind of be like excited by it. What's coming? There's a great. Have you ever read Paulo Coelho's The Alchemist?
Yeah.
All right. So you won't go into the story of it, but like there's a great part in the story where he's given up like everything to go in search of this treasure, and he's following his instinct and he's doing all this stuff, and at first as well, it's like a weird, like life starts to help you out quite quickly, and then you get carried away on that, and then but there's a moment in it where like basically someone he trusted like steals everything from him, and he's lost everything, and he's sat I think on this curb like in in some market, and he's like he went, he had a choice there and then. He went, either I can be like really beat up by this experience and give up, or I can be like the adventurer in my own story and just see it as an adventure, and I'm on the adventure, and I kind of try and do that in my life now, like when, and because I have moments where you're like, working in a startup, and at times it's really, really tough, and it's like
understatement. Yeah,
and it's kind of dust yourself down and go, look, I'm an adventure in a story, but also that faith element of if I'm I'm kind of doing what feels right to me, then I take comfort in knowing that there's something there that I believe in. If I'd made the decisions on my head, then I actually that stresses me out more now, because I'm like, you know what, I've ignored everything that was in me, and I've kind of gone on based on head and living up to someone else's expectation.
It's kind of like it's freedom at the end of the day. We talk about money giving you freedom, right? But it's also, you need freedom from all those other forces that are trying to kind of take you away from your true self, like your authentic self. Do you know what I mean? So when you basically just kind of zone out that noise and you be like, it doesn't really matter what everyone else expects of me. It's like, what do I really, who am I? And what do I really want to do with my life? Because we've got limited time on this earth, right? We talked about it in the last episode. You can't take tomorrow for granted. So what are you going to do? However many heartbeats you've got left, what are you going to do with those heartbeats, right? What are you going to do with that time? And if you're not living authentically and not being your true self, then you're setting yourself up for pain at the end of the day, right? So that's kind of my conclusion to this, right?
And like, it's difficult because like a lot of parents project, you know, their expectations onto their children. Like the one kind of thing like with my own children is again, and it's funny because I see some parents who almost feel this sense of ownership. And like their kids' successes are somehow going to be their successes.
Yeah, 100%. A reflection of them.
Yeah. But I kind of see, you know, I love the word guardian, like for being a parent, because I kind of see like children, it's their journey. It's not my journey. No. It's like their journey. They're their own individual person. And my job is to be a guardian to help guide them where I can. But ultimately it's their journey. It's not.
Totally.
And it's like, it's my life. And, you know, when I get to the end of my life, if I sit and go, well, you know, I did everything because of what mum and dad wanted me to do. Like they're not going to be around at that point in a way. And B, it's like, the responsibility is on me to do what's right for me. And then the final point I'd make on it is like no one else can really know like what makes you like tick and stuff. So like only you as an individual can know that. And then I think people hopefully who love and care about you will support you, even if it doesn't make sense to them, like why you'd want to go a certain route with something.
Yeah, so on that parenting point, so I was talking to a guy who I know who's, you know, he's pretty famous. He's been pretty successful as an entrepreneur, kind of came from nothing, worked his way up, done really well, and he's gonna have children soon enough, right? And he's getting excited about the idea of that. And we were laughing and joking. It's like, what's your kid going to be? Like, how's he going to live up to, you know, what you've achieved and what you've done? He's like, oh, yeah, you know, he's going to have to smash it. He's going to have to do this, do that. He's going to have to be way better than me. And I was like, you need to be careful with that, right? Because so often if a kid grows up in the shadow of their parent and the amount of expectation you put on that kid's shoulders, you're setting them up for a disaster, right? Because they're going to think, I'm never going to be able to be that good. I'm never going to be able to do that. And it's just, and you're projecting your own life and your own dreams and your own ambitions on that child. They might not want to do anything like what you've done with your life. They might want to do something completely different because that's just who they are. But you project all that because you were a success and because you, or whatever you called a success. And we had a whole episode about success. But like, you've got to be so careful. And like, and now that I understand that, I realize that, you know, I've done whatever I've done in my life, and let's say I've achieved certain things, you know, whilst it'll be nice for my kids to achieve things, and I'll be super proud of them if they do, I'm not going to define how much I love them or what their worth is by what they achieve.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna let them know every day that they are worthy regardless, right?
Yeah.
And that will hopefully mean that they are less likely to be traumatized by me, just like most of us. We've all been traumatized in some way by our parents, not on purpose, but I'm not saying it's on purpose, mum and dad, promise. But the point being is, as a parent who has awareness and understanding of how that trauma happens through those expectations and through those subconscious messages that, you know, your kids feel their self-worth is connected to whether they deliver on those expectations and the things that their parents are wanting them to do, that can really fuck you up, basically, right? And I don't want to do that to my kids.
No, and also, and then the final point on that for me is, like, you don't want to deny the world of what could be their brilliance, like, by forcing them down a route that,
and you don't know what that is,
and they probably will inside. I think we all kind of, again, deep down sort of know that,
but they'll only know that
trying to find it.
They'll only know that if they're encouraged to find it. That's exactly what you said, right? And that means trying things out and feeling that process, right? Feeling, how does this make me feel? Once they know what makes them feel right, then they can go for it. And it's our job as parents to just kind of steer them down, guide them, and just let them find themselves, basically. All right, I think we'll call that an end to this one. So, I guess our advice would be to anyone, whether you're young, whether you're old, whatever, it's, you don't want to be on your deathbed thinking, I didn't live my life. I lived someone else's version of what my life should have been, right? So yeah, that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll catch you next time.